Warning: the following podcast show that you're about to listen to will include explicit language and content in which you, the members of the audience, may find offensive. Audience discretion is advised.
Welcome to another episode of the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience.
Yeah, boy.
Where anything and everything is a subject matter on the show, and no subject matter is ever taboo.
Damn, that's what's up with you.
And now, your host with the most, Mr. Kim Hoang. Bro, am I getting paid for this?
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, the jury? How in the world are you? This is your boy Kim Hoang, the Asian sensation, and we're here once again cooking up in my kitchen of another great episode of the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience, coming from you live from an undisclosed location. I have to be 100% transparent. Today is going to be a good day. I have a guest that is here. But here's where the transparency was going to happen right now. We were going to meet in person, but in the Washington, D.C. area, for those that may know or may not know, we did get hit with a lot of snow and wintry mix. Where I'm at, the roads are cleared, but the neighborhoods are not. And I'm one of those people that, if I don't feel like it's a safe thing for them to travel to come meet me, to do a one-on-one in person, I will throw in that card for safety because, safety is the number one thing that I'm a big, big supporter of. So, I told my guest, it may not be a good idea to do an in-person guest, although that's killing me because, I love this guy. I really do. But, I care for his safety and I threw an alternate idea. So we're doing this interview on the interwebs via Zoom, thanks to, modern technology. And it's a good thing. So for those that are, dissing technology and where it's going from, guys, it is a great instrument. It is a great tool. Don't think of it as like it's a disadvantage. It's there for you. It was created for a reason. So that being said, I've been looking forward to this, and I'll give you a short story. The story is that I had a guest of Master Elizabeth Lindsay, who is a martial artist based out of the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. She is she's real bad, man. She's a bad competitor. I mean, women that, compete in her, division should fear her, because she's that good. And one of my friends, who is the guest, who also has competed during the same era, was like, wow, that's pretty solid. I would like to be on there. And I said, you know what? I really should put you on here because it's long overdue. You're a person that, that I admire and have great respect for. You do a lot of great things, in and out of the martial arts community. Why not? This guy is a real dynamo. And I have a little bit in the world of podcasting, we have a cheat sheet. So we can actually sound like we know what we're talking about here. Sometimes I do like to do it freestyle, but I just didn't want to mess it up today. I wanted to try to get at least, 50% of the facts right. And if it isn't, I'll be corrected. It's all good. My guest is a martial artist and a martial arts competitor. He is a 6th degree black belt in the art of Taekwondo under Grandmaster John Bussard, who was a student of the late Taekwondo Grandmaster Whang Kim of Washington, D.C. For those that don't know who Whang Kim is, this man built a lot of champions from, names like Mike Warren, Albert Cheeks, Mitchell Bobrow, Greg Battle, Jimmy Roberts, Mike Wolf, even John Bussard. The list goes on and on and on. Now, while all of that, he is also the head instructor of the North Potomac location of Kicks Karate, which is a martial arts studio that Mr. Bussard has all over in the Montgomery County area. For those that want to know more about, Kicks Karate and the various locations, www.kickskarate.com. When he's not teaching, he's working over at the main office overseeing the daily operations on a day-to-day basis. This man's resume in terms of martial arts competition kind of reads like, like the Tom Brady of like world records here. I mean, my man has won the S. Henry Cho All-American Open. He has won the Whang Kim Eagle Classic, the Grandmaster Ki Yun Yi Garden Invitational, the CS Kim National All Martial Arts Championship in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and probably more tournaments that that are out there that I can't mention because I probably didn't get the info. But if he was there, he probably won it. And, and this guy has competed in both forms and sparring, won grand championships in both divisions. And, he's here right now in the flesh, and I'm really excited that he's here. So for the one time here over in, the private location on the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience, I have my good friend, Master Lee Anderson, is in the building. Lee, how the heck are you, sir?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to see you, number one. And again, I do apologize for the fact that we're not doing it in person, but, with the weather inclement that we had in the DC area, I just felt like, I don't want you to get into a car crash just to see me. So we'll just do it this way. And I know, off the record, you said that after, this is done, you have like an event to go through or go to. So this actually works for you because you're at home.
Yeah, it does actually. So it works out. And those roads, the roads are pretty fine, but a lot of the neighborhoods that I've been in are pretty dicey for sure.
Yeah. I think that's what Montgomery County is like. Take care of the main roads and, the 270s and the 495s. But, as far as the neighborhoods, they're on their own. They have to fend for themselves. Moco, you got to get it right, man. You got to get right. I'm really excited for this because, this has been long overdue. Of a lot of martial art competitors and people that I know personally, I know you were definitely on that list. And I felt like if there was ever a time to pull the trigger, as they say, to have this conversation and to have a one-on-one, this definitely would be it. This definitely would be it for sure. And a complimentary, I'm loving the beard game. The beard game is awesome. I think we lost him. I think we might have lost him.
No, I'm still here.
Okay.
It's I'm still here if you hear me.
Oh, I can hear you. It's coming in and out a little bit, but we're okay.
I'm still here if you got me.
Yeah, I got you.
Technology, man.
I tell you, it's like you have to, if you're in the house and you're doing a Wi-Fi or if you're doing a Zoom thing, you have to go in the house where the Wi-Fi is not going to interfere. Because I know for me personally, if I'm doing Zoom in the privacy of my own home, I tell myself, I got to go upstairs because that's where the Wi-Fi signal is a lot stronger. Versus if I'm going downstairs, I have a 50-50 chance. So, that's technology for you, though. That's definitely technology for you. That said,
I got 3 kids, so I had to go somewhere where I could have some privacy too.
Okay. Are you? Now I see that you're in your home right now. Are you in the office or the master bedroom? Where are you at?
Currently, I'm in the master bedroom.
Okay. Yeah, that works. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get this thing started. I'm really excited. Now, obviously, you were born and raised a Marylander. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you've been in Moco all of your life?
Yeah.
Okay. Where exactly in Moco? Were you in Gaithersburg? Were you over in Germantown? Where were you at?
So I grew up in Gaithersburg. The first house we lived in was at the corner of Clopper and Long Draft.
Okay, I know Clopper.
Yeah, and then when I was 14, we moved to the Lakelands, which is right next to the Kentlands.
Yeah.
I went to private school for the first I guess through seventh grade. And then when I was in seventh grade, the school downsized quite a bit. And so I ended up going to public school, and I went to Kingsview. And then when we moved, I would have gone either way, but I went to Quince Orchard High School after that.
Yeah.
Was 6.
Now, what was a young Lee Anderson like back in the day? I mean, was he a popular kid? Was he a shy kid? Was he athletic? Where was he at?
No, he was a kind of a nerdy looking, shy-ish kid, which is one of the reasons that my parents got me in martial arts to begin with. Mm-hmm. I was I'm an only child. The part of the issue for me was I had some school friends and I had some neighborhood friends, but because I didn't go to school with them, I wasn't as close with either group. So I definitely was a little more of an introvert for a while, but I used to have these big, thick, nerdy glasses, these big model glasses. I had braces forever. So I was very skinny. I'm not super athletic at all. So everything that I accomplished in martial arts, I absolutely had to work my tail off for.
Right on. Word had it that back in the days of Quince Orchard High School, you were on the football team.
No. I was never on the football team. No, my dad coached high school football for 30 years.
Okay.
At that time, he was at Wheaton High School, and he was defensive coordinator for Wheaton from like the early 2000s through my high school career. So I used to be on the sidelines with him all the time with football. So I've been around football forever, but I actually never played it myself, in an organized fashion.
Okay. I for some weird reason, I had it in my head that you played football for Quince Orchard and that you were like the field goal kicker.
No, man, I wish that would have been a smart move, but I couldn't get away from being on the sidelines with my dad. I just loved it so much, and he never pushed me. He has a lot of injuries from it. He played, from youth league through high school and junior college at MC. A lot of injuries from it, so he never pushed me to play it. He's like, I absolutely would have loved you to play it, and if you wanted to do it, I would have supported it. But I was never that into playing it until I would have really got into it around my 8th grade year. And that's when I started really going on the sidelines with him. But at that point, I was 14, and if you're not really starting at a young age at that point, it's pretty hard to get into it at that point. And Quince Orchard now it's a super dominant program in Montgomery County or in the state of Maryland. But at that point, it was just starting to be on the cusp of it. So no, I never did, but I do wonder if I could have been a kicker, kicker punter.
I think you could have. I think you probably could have gave Justin Tucker a run for his money. I think so. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, man. I mean, with all the kicking that we do, I mean, it's got to translate well on the gridiron. You
would think, right?
I would think so. I mean, those field goal kickers and punters, I mean, flexibility is part of the game, yeah. and the other half is just the kicking technique.
Yeah.
So that being said, when did you actually visually see martial arts for the first time? I'm not talking about like actually enrolling in a martial arts program, but when did you see martial arts visually for the first time?
That is a great question. I know that, I mean, obviously I saw it in the movies when I was younger. I love the Power Rangers. That was always my favorite TV show. There's that old, which now it's like looking back on it's probably some goofy movie. But what was that movie? Like The Three Ninjas or something? With the grandfather?
Yep.
That was a great one. But I think the first time I saw it when I was in 2nd grade, they started a martial arts class at my private school. And I don't remember why I didn't start it, but I didn't start it at that point. At some point, I really wanted to do it. I think a couple of my friends there were doing it, and I don't remember if there was a demonstration. I think at some point there was a demonstration, but I don't remember if that was before I started actually doing it myself. But I remember asking my parents, like, I want to do this. And at that point, growing up, we didn't have a ton of extra money. and already going to private school probably stretched them pretty thin as it was. And I don't think I showed like that real hardcore interest at that point. So I think they were like, oh, let's see what it's like, when the next session comes around. Maybe we missed it altogether and you couldn't sign up, once it had started.
Right.
But that was the first time I really remember seeing it, was at some point in second grade.
Okay. When did you actually lock in and say, you know what, I am going to go ahead and take martial arts, and you got enrolled into a formal martial arts school or program?
Yeah. So it was actually in second grade as well. Now there's two versions of the story. There's what I remember, and then what my parents actually said happened. So what I remember, it was the last day of school, and I came home. I don't remember why, but all of a sudden we got in the car and we went over to Kicks Karate in Old Town Gaithersburg.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is no longer there, actually.
Oh, rest in peace.
Yeah. It was a good first location for them. But I went in. Actually, Mr. Bussard did my introductory lesson. We used to do a 2-part introductory lesson at that point. And when we went in, I did this basic lesson with him. It was an old hardwood floor. They used to have. You never went to that location, right?
I've seen it. I never went there. I was always a student of Grandmaster Johnson.
Right. I just didn't know if you had been in at some point. So they had these hard wood floors. It was a big, long floor. On one side was the office. On the other side, they had these like the cubicle, like the dividers.
Yep.
Introductory lesson on the one side of the divider. Then the classes would be going on in the middle, and we did our introductory lesson. We came back in the office. They went over the program. I remember absolutely zero about that. And then at that point, we got our uniform, but we had to come back to do a test for our white belt, and that was the second part of the introductory lesson. And I don't remember exactly when that happened, but the part that I didn't know about until years later was the reason they put me in it. I mean, I think they had been thinking about it for a while. It wasn't like, randomly one day they were like, oh, let's do martial arts.
Right.
They were looking for something. In the summertime, I used to go. Both of my grandmothers live in the Wheaton Kensington area.
Okay.
And I would go 3 days to one grandmother, 2 days to the other in the summer. And it was great for what it was, but I didn't have a lot of social interaction. They would do as best they could with me, but there's only so much you can do. And so they were looking to put me in a couple summer camps that year, and they missed the deadline for all these Gaithersburg summer camps. And so my mom said to my dad, like, we've got to find something for him to do in the summer. Like, he can't just go to his grandmother's house. And so they ended up looking at karate, and around that time, a neighbor actually walked down the street in their karate uniform, and my mom went to the neighbor's house and was like, "Hey, where do you do karate at?" And it happened to be Kicks Karate, and so she called up. She actually spoke with Mr. Bussard at that point, and then and that's when I went in for the introductory lesson, and that would have been 1996.
Wow. Man, just like 1 year shy before I actually graduated high school. Wow. Wait, thanks for making me feel old at this point. Okay. All right. When you actually took your first formal lesson and you actually earned the white belt,
right.
did you realize at that point, like, wow, this might be the beginning of something really beautiful for not only my martial arts life, but my life outside of it in general?
No, I had absolutely zero clue. The very first class that I took was a Saturday. The first official class that I took was a Saturday morning. And I remember there was zero of what we did, except for I remember we practiced front stances down the floor. And we had a walk is what he called it. And
okay, so like walking into Chungle Jai, say.
Yes, sir. And it was fine. I enjoyed it, but it was never something at that point that I thought this was going to be something I did past the summer. I mean, I just kind of did what my parents said I was going to do. So if they said it was going past the summer, then it was going past the summer. But I mean, I guess at some point it must have clicked a little bit because they kept me enrolled. And I, at some point it became pretty enjoyable for me.
Right.
I don't remember when. I do remember that when we started sparring, I hated it. I absolutely when we started sparring, I was fine with it. But when I became a red belt, at that point, kicks was still pretty new, and now they separate classes out pretty far. Like it's, you have your beginner class, which is white and gold, yellow and orange.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point we had red through all the black belts. And so I ended up sparring this kid who was pretty good. And he was, I think he was a black belt, and he beat me up pretty good that day. I mean, nothing, when you're 10 years old or whatever I was, he stung me. I didn't actually get hurt or anything like that, but he stung me. And I just remember getting in the car that night, and my parents they started doing a cardio kickboxing in the other room. So they had two sides of the studio.
Right.
And I got in the car and I said to my dad, I don't want to do karate anymore. And he was like, why? Like, where'd this come from? I was like, no reason. I just don't want to do it. And he found out from one of the other instructors that I had sparred and was enlightened, let's say.
Yeah.
And he really was like, well, I'm sorry, but you're not quitting until you at least get your black belt. And
good man. Yes.
I thank him for it. He always was like, maybe I was a little hard on you. I was like, I think it was probably what I needed at that point, because it really wasn't like the kid was my size. It wasn't like it was some big kid that, did any kind of real damage. I just was not used to getting hit at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. When did you think that, when you're from your parents' perspective, like, wow, we're definitely getting our money's worth knowing that Lee is getting a very good martial arts education and we're seeing the benefits of it?
I would say, they must have seen it fairly early on because they, like I said, they kept me enrolled. We didn't have a ton of extra money at that point. It wasn't super expensive, but it wasn't cheap. And
right.
So they must have seen what they were getting was worth it. One of the first ones that sticks out was I do remember when I tested for my black belt, and I did row high, and most of the kids were breaking like one or two of those little small boards.
Right.
And I got up there and Mr. Bussard goes, you feeling strong today, Lee? And I said, yes, sir. He goes, okay, 3. And so he put 3, small boards. They weren't. And I remember, I don't remember this, but my parents, I guess, were pretty nervous at that point. They were like, oh, geez, I don't know if he can do it. Because we had seen for years at these black belt exams, people just going boom and going, touch the board, boom, touch the board, and it wouldn't break it. And there's one that I remember where this kid, it took him forever, and the whole family was crying. And when you're young, if you don't break that board on that first try, it's really hard to break it after that because all that energy comes right back to your hand. And so they were pretty nervous. And as soon as I came down with that punch and went straight through the 3 boards to the ground, and I think that's the first time they really were like, he might actually be okay at this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what life was like before black belt? Like, getting to the road of black belt, was it pretty easy for you? Was there some challenges that you had to face? I mean, what was it like for your journey?
The biggest challenge we had to face was the studio was in Gaithersburg. I went to school in Kensington, and my mom worked in Kensington as well. And she got off at 5. She would come pick me up at 5:15. Who knows what traffic's going to be like getting back to Gate. And I guess when I started, the classes that I was doing must have been at like 7:00. But at some point when I got to green or something belt, the class time changed, and it must have been at 6. And it was a struggle to make it by 6. I remember she would pick me up. She had my uniform. I would change in the car, even though I could have absolutely changed at the school. But I guess to save time, I changed in the car.
Right.
I'd be bolting into the door. That was honestly probably the biggest challenge. As far as like technique wise, I don't remember anything specific that was extremely challenging besides the normal, but I don't remember anything that I really struggled with other than sparring.
Okay. So let's fast forward a little bit. You went through the ranks, everything's going good. The day of the big one, the first degree black belt test. Before let's rewind it a little bit. when you got the notice where they were saying, Lee, you're going to test for black belt, I mean, what were you thinking? Like, did it really sink in? Were you nervous? Were you confident? How was your inner being at that point?
You know, I don't remember. I really don't. I remember being there. I don't think I grasped how much of an achievement it really was at that point, because we didn't have, because Kicks was only open for 2 years before I started. So we didn't have a ton of black belts at that point. In fact, I only remember being at a handful of black belt exams prior to it. And I do remember this. One of the things I was absolutely the most nervous for, and looking back on it, they would never have done this to me at 11 years old. But the very first black belt exam that I went to, an adult student was testing, and he did row high, and he did not break. I think he had 3 boards as well, 3 like thicker adult boards.
Okay.
He did not break at least one of them, and they had him try to do it again. He tried to do it with a palm strike, just couldn't do it. And so they did kind of the old traditional where he'd get in a front stance. He had his hands out to the side, and they made sure he was super tense. And then all of a sudden they broke it over his forehead. And I mean, it was really cool to watch, but I remember being like, I do not want that to happen to me. And, you know, obviously looking back, there is no way that Mr. Bussard would have done that to me at 11 years old, but I didn't know that. So I was like, that was honestly something I was really, really nervous about. I totally forgot about that until you brought it up, but that was absolutely something that was in the back of my head there for a bit.
When you actually went through the test and you found out that you got promoted, and the black belt is like right there around your waist, I mean, how happy and jazzed were you when you actually saw that visually? Like, oh my gosh, I'm a black belt. You know,
that one didn't stick in as much as my second degree. The first degree, I don't know if it was the same at Master Johnson's studio, but we didn't have, I think it was, but we didn't have our name embroidered on it. It was just solid black belt.
Solid black belt, yep.
So, and again, I still was fairly new at martial arts. Like, I knew that like black belt was like top tier stuff. I'm sure it was pretty, a pretty big deal to me even at 11. But when I was 13, that's when I tested for my second degree. And I was also at that point now assisting. And I remember like getting ready for the exam, and we had all the belts lined up for the previous exams. And I kind of snuck a peek and was like, oh man, there's my name with my name embroidered on it with the 2 gold bars. Yep. And it was the one I was like, that one sticks out to me more than my first degree exam. And that was like, when I pulled that one on and saw my name on the belt, and I was like, oh man, now it's official, man. Now they can, this isn't just somebody's black. This is my black belt.
You're a black belt. Yeah. No, I definitely understand that, because, when I earned my first degree black belt, it was a blank black belt, but I felt proud of that black belt, because it's like all the stuff that I did prior to that, from that moment until this moment, it was all worth it, because, I put in a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and it's here. But to get above, a first degree, getting a second degree or a third degree with your name on there, with the bars on there, and, whatever might be on the other side, I feel like, man, this is what the black belt is. Like, man, this is solid.
I'm sure it was a big deal when I was 11. I just don't remember it as well. I just remember 13 when I tested for second degree really sticking out. Like, I remember we were still in my old townhouse, and the next day I just remember being on the back deck, full uniform on, second degree black belt on, and just kind of hanging out with it. Like, that's the one I remember really being a big deal.
On a side note, or a side question, do you still have all of your belts from when you were training, when you first started?
I did for a long time, but I don't know if, I had it when we moved to our second house, but I don't know whatever happened to them after I moved out. But I don't. Maybe they still have them. I don't know. They could still be in my old closet. I don't know. But I have. most of the degree belts, second, I don't know about second, but third, fourth, fifth, sixth, I still have those. Yeah.
Oh, I think you need to go back over to that house to see if you can find that second one. It's like your child, man. You can't let that go.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So when did the tournament bug hit you? About competing in tournaments and stuff like that?
That's a great question. So the very first tournament I competed in was in 1997. It was Master C.S. Kim's tournament up in Pittsburgh.
Right.
And I was, I believe, a red belt at that point. And no, I was green. I take that back. I was green belt. And even like later on, it was still a huge tournament. But this is 2000. I'm sorry, this was 1997. So there was probably 2,500 competitors back then.
Yeah.
And it was at the old Fitzgerald Fieldhouse. And I remember walking in, and it just seemed like this long, and we must have come in a different way, because years later, I'm like looking at it, I'm like, I don't ever remember being that long. But we like walked in, it felt like it took forever to get there. When I did forms, we had, 30 kids in my division, and they split them out pretty well too. And there was still 30 kids in my division. I did Penon 2. It was horrendous. And then we went to sparring, and I won the first match. I won the second match. I lost the third match. And so I had to compete for third and fourth. Back then, they didn't have a fourth place trophy. So I had to win to get third. I lost. And I remember like being a little disappointed with it, but whatever. It was fun.
Yeah.
Went to a few more tournaments, still didn't win anything. It probably was about 5 tournaments before I ever placed. And I really, again, I have to thank my dad about this. I really did not like competing for a long time. And a part of it was because I wasn't successful.
Right.
I was always very, very nervous, especially with sparring. I was going to get hurt. And one day when I was, I believe, still a solid black belt, one of the guys who competed with us, his name was Edwin Aguirre. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yeah, I remember him. Yeah, I remember him.
Rest in peace,
man.
Yeah, he
love that guy.
He's like a Saturday afternoon tournament prep class, and it was an hour-and-a-half class. And he was the first one that ever looked at me and saw something in me, and he really took his own time to really work with me. And it took a while, but I started placing at that point. Really just in sparring. I think I was doing Chinto back then, and it was not great at Chinto. And so it probably was around the early 2000s, like 2002, 3, that I really started enjoying it now, because now I was starting to win. Now people were starting to recognize me. And so that was that. But it took a while before I really started to do tournaments, because I wanted to do them at that point.
Yeah. Did you feel like competing all this time? Did you feel like, you had something to prove within yourself, because you felt like, if I'm competing, I want to carve my name in the history books, and to be up there with the names of the Mike Warrens and the Jimmy Roberts of the traditional martial arts circuit?
Yeah, not at first. I think at first it's just something to do. Once I started to get a little bit older, once I started winning, that's kind of when I was like, now you see the program with all these names in it. And it was like, man, I want to be in that program.
Yeah.
And, like, Pittsburgh used to have, they stopped going like all the way back to the beginning of when they started, recording the champions. But it was probably in the mid 80s at that point that they started documenting it in their programs. And so, back then it was Mike Wolf, it was Joe Bruno was in it, and then Ricky was in it, Ricky Faisbach. I'm going to totally butcher his last name. And so I was like, man, I want my name in there. So there was a point absolutely where I felt a sense of, I want to be a part of that history.
Right.
And that was probably, I was still young. I was probably about 17 when I really, really wanted to. Yeah, I was younger than that when I wanted it, but I was about 17 when it was really a possibility.
Right. What was how did you prepare yourself for such, tournaments like that? Because again, the tournaments that we came up, the Henry Cho All-American Open, the Whang Kim Eagle Classic in Rockville. In New Jersey, you have the Ki Yee's Garden Invitational, and of course, like you said, CS Kim's National All Martial Arts Championship. That's a lot for a person to prepare for. You know what I mean? Like when you prepare, you got to prepare for war. And I know sometimes a lot of people get busy and so forth with life.
Yeah.
How did you manage to prepare? How did you prepare for such tournament events like that?
When I was 15 or so, I was still working with Edwin, and I was working with Mr. Bussard, and that was a point where he was kind of working privately with me on Kun Sung Gun, specifically. And we would also work on sparring, but because the form took so much more attention to detail, we spent a lot of time working on that.
Yeah.
And, I remember we met once a week for a solid hour. I mean, he's running an entire organization. So the fact that he took time for a few years and really, really just worked with me on these tiny little details was really awesome. And I just continued to do that throughout college. I specifically went to college locally because I wanted to continue to train, and I wanted to compete. And I used to reserve a dance studio down at McDaniel College 4 days a week, and just would continue to work, the entire form, parts of the form. At some point, I realized how important these side kicks were in the form.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with Master Johnson and seeing, I'm going to butcher their names, but Han and Wendell, correct?
Yeah,
Am I right with that?
Yeah, those are my cousins.
No, okay, nice. I remember seeing their beautiful sidekicks when I was young, and at some point it clicked. Like, man, those need to look pristine. Like, I always felt like you could have, if you do a form of sidekicks, you could have a beautiful form, but if the sidekicks are bad, the form is bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think you can just have a good form with just good sidekicks, but I always felt like you can't get past it without these sidekicks, especially in a Korean style tournament. And so I used to do thousands of wall kicks. I did the wall kicks with the weights, really working on flexibility with stretching. Would put the weights, I'd put my butt up against the wall, put my legs out to the side, and just kind of like gravity do it. I would do it with the weights. And at some point also with sparring, one of the best things that Mr. Bussard taught me was how to read a fighter. And he, it wasn't so much what you were, I'm sorry, let me back up. It wasn't so much what was open. It was what you were good at and how could you score with that.
Right.
And so like, yeah, okay, you might be able to, their head might be open for a hook round kick, but if you can't throw a hook round kick face high, who cares? Like, that, you're never going to score with that.
Right.
So if you're really good at side kicks, how do I set up a side kick? And one of the things he really taught me was if you throw something, whatever they do to respond to it is not an accident. It's how they typically respond. So if you throw a side kick and they run out of they back up a lot, that's what they do. If they throw a side kick and they stay in tight and try to jam it, that's what they do. Mm-hmm. So if you throw a side kick and their hand drops, that's what they do. So it's like, okay, so now when I throw this, what do I set up after this to score? So it was never really that first technique that we were really working on scoring. It was really what followed it up. And then it was also one of the things that I always remembered was when you'd be sparring with someone and they would try to bait you with something. And so what they would do is they put their hand kind of high to really try to make the ribs show. And they were like, all right, I'm trying to bait you into throwing a side kick. Right. And I remember seeing somebody try to do it one time, and it was exactly what the person planned for. They tried to throw the side kick, the guy blocked out and came in and punched him. I was like, okay. So what I realized was I need to throw a kick that they think is going to their ribs, because now they're going to have to overcompensate to block low. And I want to bring that leg around without throwing the side kick and bring it around for a round kick to the head. Right. And because I was like, never be able to bring that hand back up to block it. Now, I guess in theory they could use this hand, but they weren't. And I remember hitting a few people with that. One of them really sticks out was oh gosh, I don't remember the guy's name, but it was the Allentown tournament. And I fought this guy from the Army Academy, West Point, and he did that same thing. He stuck that hand out, and I looked right at the other thing too was your eyes. And that was one thing Mr. Bussard taught me, was you want to look right where you want them to think you're throwing. And so I looked right at his hip, and I got this like kind of look of excitement. I brought that leg up to throw, chained that leg up real high, and I started throwing it around. And as soon as his hand dropped, I brought that thing around and just boom, right in the side of the head.
Ooh.
And 4 flags went up. So those were like the big things that I really remember learning, that I really took with me when I went to college and had to do a lot of training on my own.
How was it determined that Goon Sengun / Kong Sengun was going to be your tournament form? Because you said prior Chinto was your first form, which is a shock. Which is a shock, because I thought that you would have done Jian or Sambaguang.
Right. Yeah. So the reason why it was actually the form was when the first tournament I did in Pittsburgh, Mr. Bussard actually competed, and he did that form. And so my dad videotaped it. And when I was a first degree, I did something that I didn't realize at the time, but I found out later was completely unethical. And I copied it from the videotape. And so I guess we just thought that was the best form to do. That was before I realized it's not so much the form that you do, it's more the form that you do well and what fits you. So like people that are not graceful should not do Chinto. People that are not powerful probably shouldn't do Jian. And Kun Sangun requires a little bit of both. And so we used to do an in-house friendship tournament, we called it, at Kicks Karate, with all the different karate locations. And I came up, and I think Mr. Bussard was the head judge, and I did Kun Sangun. And I didn't know this till later. I didn't win. I took second, but I didn't know this till later. But he was not happy that I had learned that. I was so young, I didn't realize that it was never impressed upon me that was not okay. But not long after that, within a few weeks, he goes, "All right, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right." And so we just started working on that one. And I kind of just put all my eggs in a basket with that one and said, this is going to be the one that I'm really going to work and really do well. And I mean, I can do all the other forms that you mentioned, but there's just a certain level of knowledge and comfort that I have with Kun Sangun, because I've been doing it now for 25 years, probably. That, I don't know, we just always thought that was going to be the best one. That's a great question. I never really thought about that, but it was always just kind of, that's the form we're doing.
Yeah. And let's go a little bit forward. You know, you being a college student, graduating from McDaniel College, during your college years, I mean, it must have been really challenging balancing your academic college life and the tournament life, because, you know, when you get to college, you know, for most of those individuals, their concentration and emphasis is on college and their education, and rightly so, you know, because, you know, they want to, you know, do the best that they can and, you know, sacrifice what might be to them a distraction. I got to cut it off so I can do well in college. But you managed to do both, which is really that in itself is like, wow, like, how did you even find the balance?
The main reason, I mean, so I was probably always going to go to college, but when I was going to college, I always had a desire to have my own karate school. So when I went to college, I had a conversation with Mr. Bussard, and he was like, I want to help you with a school, but you need to get your college education first. So it was always like, okay, I've got to do that. But at that point in my life, all I cared about was competing. And I had won a few grand champions before I went to college, but I knew I had such a finite amount of time to compete at a high level, you know, in my late teens to early 20s. And I didn't want to, what I thought, waste that time in college or take a significant break and then come back and, you know, be starting from wherever I was going to start at. So my priority in college was always training. I I guess as far as like the balance goes, a part of it helped that like when I would train at the dance studio, I had to have a specific time to be there. So I think it was typically 4 to 5 that I would go. And I was just very dedicated to a schedule at that point. So, you know, I had class, it depended on the day, but I would have class typically earlier than that. And then I would take a break and then go back and then train for an hour, hour and a half, however long I could really stay in there for. And then when I got out, I would do whatever I needed to do for school. But it came at, I would say a slight social cost, but not really. I ended up, even in my second year, I joined a fraternity. So the one semester I was still pledging. But it was a fraternity that when I went to college, I was very anti-frat. I was like, no, not going to do that. They're all about partying, they're all about drinking, and I'm very focused. Yeah. Well, I was living on a dorm floor with a bunch of these guys from a fraternity, and they really got along with me well. And they're like, we really think you should come and join. I was like, yeah, but I'm not into all that stuff. They're like, dude, we're very different than most fraternities. In fact, our pledging is dry. You have to be sober the entire 2 months that you're pledging. And I was like, really? Okay. So I ended up doing that. And I was like, wow, this is really a great thing. And so, I mean, I barely drank in college. And because, again, I was just so focused on competing. So whatever I did, it was not going to come at a cost of not being able to compete. Mm-hmm. Same thing with relationships. Whatever I did at that point, it was not going to come at a cost of competing because I was so focused on specifically the spring, obviously, was when most of the tournaments were. But I was like, that's what I care about. That's what I want. That's going to take priority. And then I majored in business, which to me kind of came naturally. So the schooling part wasn't that challenging to maintain. There were certain classes that were like, I had to take these economics and statistics classes, and statistics to this day, I couldn't tell you anything about the statistics. I did enough to pass.
There you go.
But the overall major wasn't extremely challenging. I don't believe. The competing part was always much more prep. And it was my drive and passion at that point.
When you competed, who were like the names of like certain people that you felt like, wow, this person is like my rival. This person potentially could make me be a little bit better at what I do, whether if it's forms or in sparring.
So there's. I was hoping you would ask this one because I was thinking about this earlier. There's quite a few that really stick out. So when I was younger, there was a guy from New Jersey. His name was Wade Dix.
Yep, and Wade Dix.
You remember him?
Yeah, I remember him.
Man, okay. So him and I competed against each other, and we competed in forms, but it was much more competitive in sparring for when I was like 15 or 16 till I was about 20. And we probably fought each other about 8 times at tournaments. And after like the first or second time, we kind of became friendly. And so he would go to one end of the bracket and then I would go to the other end of the bracket. And the goal was to meet in the finals. And then when we got into the adult division, he would go in one weight class. I would go in the other weight class. And the goal again was to meet in the finals. So he was like one of the first ones that I really remember. There was also Eric DePrince, who was from Master Giacobi's school out in New Jersey, who I competed against as a teenager and then later on as an adult, and just not just an awesome martial artist, but all these people that I'm going to name were just awesome people in general. And he was always so complimentary of me. And I'm like, dude, if you ever hit me with that horse kick, I'm going to get knocked out, man. Like I was like, I don't know if you realize this, but when we're sparring, I'm just trying to stay away from your horse kick, man. So those two for sparring for sure. Robert Zhang is one of my favorite people I've ever met at tournaments. I still talk to him to this day. He was someone that I had seen his name a few times in the Pittsburgh program.
Yep.
And he I never knew who he was. And then I saw him one year. I didn't realize it was him, but at New York, I actually think it was the year that I was able to win both the forms and the sparring. And I was like, I saw him warming up. I was like, who is that guy? Like, he is really good. And it turned out to be him. And I was very fortunate that when we got to the finals, there was 4 of us. He fought the super heavyweight guy who beat him, and I fought somebody else. As I don't know if I would have beaten Robert that day. The matchups were just a little bit different. Mm-hmm. So he was definitely one. There was, growing up, there was Ricky. Ricky was always like my kind of big brother at these tournaments, even though we didn't have a relationship at that point, because he was at Kim's studio, I was at Kicks, but he was the one that was always winning at tournaments, and so he was always kind of like my idol growing up. Like, and I always remember thinking like, man, I want to train with him one day, but I just never really thought it would happen. So growing up, it was always him. And then later on too, on the sparring side, the other one that sticks out was, I didn't spar him that much, but I remember like, I learned a lot from watching him spar, but it was Derek So. And Derek also is just a super awesome guy. I think he has a school in Hanover, I believe. And we only fought once, and we fought in New Jersey, and he has legs for days, and he's so fast. And I just knew, I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to kick with this guy. So I fought a very boring fight with him, because my goal was to get to overtime and try to sneak a point in overtime. Yep. And unfortunately, I couldn't quite. I had one shot on him that I knew I had to use my hands on him. So he threw something, it kind of caught me off guard, but I came in and lead hand punched him, but it hit him, but it wasn't one of those like real clean points that you were like, that's a point. Like it was there, but it was like, okay, a couple judges thought, a couple judges didn't, but, and then later on in overtime, he hit me with an axe kick right to the head and knocked the headgear off. And I was like, well, that was that. But those guys for sparring, absolutely. And then in forms, the first one that I remember being a rival was Olivia's son. And that was probably when I was like 17 till about 20 or so. Mm. And at that point, she was much better than me, like much cleaner form, better kicks. But her and I did not, like, we were cordial to each other, but I was not friends with her by any stretch. She had a very kind of guard up, which was so different than all these other guys. All these other guys I was very friendly with. But she brought me to another level of competing, because for a long time I was like, man, I got to do what I got to do to beat her. And for your listeners that don't know, in forms, you have a men's division, a women's division, there's a few other divisions, and it usually came down to me and her and the girls. So I would win mine, she would win hers. It came down to the two of us. And for the first couple of years, she beat me. And then at some point when I was like 20, something clicked on my training that brought my intensity to a level that she wasn't matching at that point. Mm-hmm. And later on, I do remember, like, as towards the end of our competing career, we became a lot more friendlier with each other. Yeah. And also rest in peace to her as well. And then Elizabeth Lindsay was another one. I didn't compete her against her as much when I was younger. That was much more later on. And she just has this beautiful technique. And I beat her a few times early on. And then the last time we competed against each other was in Pittsburgh, and she got me. And I honestly, like, sometimes people are like, oh, she beat you on her home turf. Like, there might've been there wasn't any favoritism. Her form was better that day. No doubt about it. She does a beautiful, clean form. It was fun to watch. And then the last one was Derek Williams up in New York.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Derek is like the ageless wonder. And when I competed against him, the first time I remember was in 2008 at Henry Cho's, and I had won my division. And I got into the finals against him, Olivia, and a couple other people. So when they were talented, so the first time I saw him do his form, he does that very traditional Shotokan form, Unsu.
Unsu, yeah. Beautiful
form. The man was 50 years old at this point. I was 20. In any other sport, you're like, the youth is going to, the youth is going to win. No, his intensity was unbelievable. And like being on the floor and watching him control the ring was just something that I was like, if I'm going to beat this guy, I need to match his intensity. I need to match his power, and it's got to be authentic. It can't be, that fake, just to growl. Like, it's got to be real. And the following year, I ended up, I ended up winning, and he took second. And he was the first person to come over and give me this big hug, and he was just so happy for me. And you just don't see that in a lot of other sports, a lot of other, anything really. I mean, who loses and is instantly given the guy that they just lost to in a hard fought battle, this big embrace, and a genuine embrace at that. Right. And I had that with all those other guys in sparring too. And the last one I forgot about in sparring was Ben Lossman from Kim Studio. Okay. He is legs for days, man. He didn't compete as much. He was kind of one of those, he was a little bit older than me, so we didn't spar a ton. But when we did, the first 2 out of the 3 times, he beat the tar out of me. And then one time, I got lucky in New York and got him, but he was another one. But then he moved away, and so I didn't compete against him as much. But I saw him a few years ago, and it's still like seeing an old friend, man. Yeah.
I remember, believe it or not, one name that comes out of the blue, Marcus Johnson used to compete in your division.
Yes, I forgot about Marcus. That was more when we were younger,
right?
And he was always, when we were teenagers, he was always better than me. He was always better than me when we were teenagers. He did such a clean. Master Johnson always has his students do the form in such a clean, powerful, strong way with those. And I'm glad you brought him up. I remember competing against him when I was like a first degree, and he did, I believe it was Kunsungun at that point, but whatever form it was, he did these side kicks. They were straight up and down basically, and he held them there for a solid 2 seconds. And I just remember being like, holy cow, like I've never seen like that at that point, man.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of stopped competing for a while when we got past like the teenage years, probably like 18, 19. And then I remember seeing him a few times in my like 23, 24, 25 ages. But yeah, he was someone absolutely when I was younger that he was top dog when I was younger. That's for sure.
The next time if I see or if I talk to Marcus, I'll definitely say that, you said hello.
Yeah, please do. He's a good man. Yeah, I keep sometimes on Facebook, but I haven't spoken to him in years, but he was a good man.
When did you know it was time to to hang up the competition days? Knowing that as human beings we have our prime, and then it comes to a point where like in terms of competition and competing, maybe I need to hang it up. When did this happen? When did this happen for you, and when did you realize that was going to happen?
So it actually happened a couple different times. When it first happened, I was probably in my mid-20s, probably like 25-ish. And the big thing was I was running a martial arts school for Mr. Bussard, and it's my livelihood, it's my business. So I wasn't tournament training as much. And it just was becoming a lot to travel to these tournaments and take time away from my school that I was still trying to grow. And so I stopped competing for like, I think a year. 2014, I didn't really compete much. And then I really missed it. And I was like, I can't not do this anymore. Like this is still something I really enjoy doing. And then I competed for a few more years. And I think the time that it really sticks out was, again, it was at our in-house tournament, and I was probably 28, 29-ish, and I was sparring, and I didn't end up sparring him, but if the kid had won the match before, he would have sparred me, and it was a kid that was my student.
Oh, wow.
He was 19 at that point, or 18, but he was still a little kid to me. I taught him since he was 10 years old.
Right.
And I just remember thinking, like, I don't want to be in here competing against my students. I want to see them compete. I want to see them do well. And so that was the big thing. And I think at that point I was getting a little bit older. Again, tournaments were my priority forever. So relationships were on a back burner. I had some, but I didn't have any like really meaningful relationships because I subconsciously couldn't devote the time to it. And I think I was just kind of ready to move on with my life and really settle down, start a family, and kind of go from there because, tournaments just take up a lot of time, not just the tournament itself, but, the prep work before it is just a lot. And so that's really when I knew I was like, I think it's just time to step away. And there's a lot of people that I compete against that are still competing. Derek So, I believe, still competes. Elizabeth Lindsay still competes. Derek Williams, I believe, is still competing, and he's almost 70. So obviously it can be done. But for me, I was just like, I think I'm ready to step away from it.
Did you ever feel like, being a person that won a lot of grand championships and a lot of, traditional martial art tournaments, that there was kind of like a pressure to keep that ball rolling?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that also, it was part of the drive, but it also was not a healthy way to live. But I would put so much pressure on myself that, especially forms, if I didn't win, it was not a successful day. And I mean the whole thing, not just my division, not, it was just, it really put a damper on things. And I'm human. So there's absolutely times I didn't win. And it just really, I really put a lot of pressure on myself to always have to be the one to win. And I think at some point that just gets to be too taxing on your spirit, your body. And it definitely became a lot at a certain point. And I don't remember exactly when it happened because there was many years that I was winning, but I didn't feel the pressure to win as much. And it was all self-imposed pressure. I was never pressured by Mr. Bussard, maybe a little bit by Ricky, but that was always in a good way. But never really, it was just me. I was like, I have this image. I come in, especially in forums, I typically win, and it's a good day. And if I didn't win, it really wasn't. And I just remember I was never bitter at anyone. Like I never was like, oh, the judges, favorite. So I'm actually very self-aware when somebody does it better. Like for years, my dad's my dad. So he would always say, oh, I think, at your peaks, your form might be better than Ricky's. I'm like, nah, it's not better than Ricky's. I said, I appreciate the sentiment, but I've seen both of our forms in our primes, and I still think his is better. And when I lost to Elizabeth Lindsay, I was like, no, she was absent. So I'm very self-aware when it comes to that. But I never, would place any blame on anything like that. But I was very hard on myself. And sometimes hard on myself to a point where it was hard to get back to work, to get back to training work. So yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of pressure on me.
Wow. I would have never thought because, from what I remember of seeing you, I always thought like, man, here's Lee Anderson. This is like the unbeatable guy. Like, this is like, if this was like the comic book world, this is the Superman of like the tournament scene right now that we're facing. And I don't think that there's any like kryptonite that we could throw at him that would make him go weak or make him go down, because he's that good.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad to hear that, because I tried to mask it. I really tried not to show it. Right. But you never know what's going on behind closed doors for sure. But I'm glad that no one caught on. But now that I'm older, I don't really care about sharing it.
Yeah,
it's human.
I will say this before I forget, and I've been meaning to say this, but since it's happening right now, I think it's the perfect time. I remember when I first got my first degree black belt. I think it was like in 2004, and then 2005. That was like the first year that I competed as like a black belt. And I remember you and I, we actually we competed at the Whang Kim tournament in Montgomery College in Rockville, which that was where it was at the time before they went to some place in Gaithersburg or something like that. We competed in the forms division together. Obviously, I did my version of, Goon Sing Goon and whatnot. But you ended up winning that division that day and the grand championship that day. But I do remember as I was walking out, like I had this this real angered look on my face, like, damn, I can't believe that, I lost and so forth. And I remember you were chasing me over and, you shook my hand and you were saying nice things to me. You're like, hey, this is the first time that you competed as a black belt, right? Yeah, yes, sir. This is my first time. He's like, you basically said, don't be so hard on yourself. You did a good job. I know that you come from, a good martial arts school with, Mr. Johnson and so forth. Just keep at it, man. I'm pretty sure that, at the end of the day, you're going to do a good job in life and you're going to be a great martial artist. So don't let this one eat you up. And I really appreciate that because, how many martial artists out there that, you compete with that are so, giving in that way. So I really want to thank you for that, for just being, such a gracious person at that time. And even now.
Dude, it's my pleasure, man. And I meant it too. And the other thing too, is there's always a common brotherhood between all of the Kim Studio lineage people, especially.
Yeah.
From my instructor to Jimmy Roberts to Mr. Johnson to John Kritzos, like there's always a common brotherhood that I feel in some level with these guys. Mm-hmm. And I remember what it was like to be competing for the first time or the first real time, I should say, because I know you competed before that, but I don't remember if somebody must have said something good to me because, I continued to do it, but yeah, it's hard and it's hard. You're competing against guys that have been training for, 10, 15, 30 years. And, everyone has a lot of promise and you just have to find that promise that you are capable of. Yeah. And if you're always so hard on yourself, sometimes, some people thrive on that. Don't get me wrong. But I know a lot of people don't. And I applaud people for just getting out there and competing because it's so much easier to not and to sit there and be an armchair quarterback. Mm-hmm. And so no matter who it is, when they get out there and they do their form and they, because nobody does it to lose. Nobody comes out there and says, oh man, I'm going to do this form just to take last place, Right. Right. There's a lot of prep work that goes with it. And, people need to know it's appreciated.
For sure. And now, being where you are now, you're not only the head instructor of the North Potomac location of Kicks Karate, but you're actually working in the main office. What is it that you do in the main office? What do you oversee?
I take care of a lot of the little details of the martial arts school. So ordering all the equipment when schools need it, all the uniforms. I deal with any changes to a student's account, when they've enrolled, making sure all the details of that are correct. When they quit, making sure that the billing stops at a certain point. I deal with maintenance issues at the schools, not necessarily doing it myself, but if there's a leak at one of the schools, I get a plumber out there. Some of the bill, I don't necessarily pay the bills, but I take care of some of the bills with these different companies. Right. What else is there really to do? I'm just a lifeline for a lot of these guys. I do some of the staff training as well. But it's just support too for all the years that I've been running a Kicks Karate location. And, we have some newer guys that are running it that are newer. And so just different situations on how to handle, or different ways to teach that are going to be good for each age groupings. For instance, this morning, I had to help at one of the locations because we had some people out there, and I was helping a guy who actually taught me when I was a kid, Mr. Brown. And he's fantastic with older kids, but he's not as great with younger kids. He tries. and he actually has gotten so much better over the years. But just like today, he was working on this kid ducking, and the kid's 5, and he had this very soft blocker. He's bringing it over his head, and he would keep it. The kid would be standing. He's like, okay, now duck, and the kid wasn't really understanding the concept of how to duck. Mm-hmm. And when he would go over his head, he would bring the blocker up and just kind of go over it. And I was like, I think what you need to do is when you say duck, when you get to his head, just touch his head so he realizes like that feel there, mm-hmm. and then be like, okay, down, and then bring it over. I was like, if you kind of go like this, he's not really going to understand what you're saying. Yeah. So just like little things like that for different age groups. And I'm not saying I'm anything perfect when it comes to teaching, but I've been doing it for a long time, and I do understand a lot of how different age groups learn.
Do you ever feel like with the accomplishments that you have done in the martial arts, in kicks karate and in the tournament circuit, that you're like basically like the Tom Brady for kicks karate? I mean, because no disrespect to any other person that's an instructor or a student there, but if I'm looking at the annals of the books of history of like of who won what grand championship and whatnot, your name is literally in about like 90% of like that book. Which to me, I feel like, man, that's the GOAT right now.
I would say I don't necessarily think of it that way, because I was really the only guy. We didn't push tournaments at kicks karate. Mm-hmm. So I was really one of the only people that competed for a long time. So there's a lot of other people that are very, very talented martial artists that just never competed. So I guess in terms of winning, I probably the face for kicks karate when it comes to that. But there was a lot of other people that had a lot of potential that just didn't have that drive that I had. But I never thought about it as like equating it to Tom Brady or anything like that. I just wanted to be the best that I could be with it, and hopefully that meant winning a lot of tournaments. But I never really thought about it like that, because I'm just Lee Anderson, man. I want that name to have a good connotation with it, but I'm nothing any more special than that.
I hear you. Now, when it comes to like your students, and if they say something like, hey Lee, I'm thinking about competing in tournaments and whatnot. What do you tell them, and like how do you guide them? Because obviously, we've had this conversation prior, because you were asking me about the Battle of Baltimore tournament, and I was just like, I really, it's a good tournament, but I can't put like my stamp of approval on it.
Yeah. And the thing with that one too, it's a great tournament for a lot of people, but it might not fit our style. Yeah. Because there's so many tournaments out there. It's not necessarily that a specific tournament is necessarily run poorly. It's just like if you do a Korean form and you go to a Chinese tournament, like you're not really going to win. So it's also, a matter of finding the right tournament with it. So it really depends on who it is that's asking me. If it's somebody who's fairly new, that wants to get into tournaments, I'm always like, listen, if you really want to do them, I will absolutely support you. The tournaments that I've done over the years, you have to travel for. So, I mean, they're usually day trips, but you got to be ready to go to Pittsburgh. You got to be ready to go to New York. You got to be ready to go to Allentown. So, and I mean, I went as far west as Ohio, and to Master Lemon's tournament for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I went to the West Virginia tournament, and, these are long trips, and I want people to get experience, but the big thing if they compete is I want them to go into it with the right expectation. And the expectation to me shouldn't be that you are winning. It's to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. Because again, just like when you were talking about when you were doing your form, it is not an easy thing to get up and perform in front of people, especially when there's a good chance you could be the only one doing something at that point in the whole gym. I guess that doesn't happen a ton unless you get to the finals, but it's certainly a possibility, but it's not easy to do. And so the question I always ask is like, what is your goal with it? Because if your goal is to win and that's the only goal, it's probably not a great reason to compete because, if there's 15 people competing, you got a 1 in 15 chance of winning. So, the chances are high. Obviously it depends on how hard you work and all these other factors. But if the goal is to test yourself against other styles, against other styles, other forms, other situations, then that's a great reason to compete. And I'll point you in the direction of competing. I still go to some of these. I don't go as many as I used to, but I still do attend some of these tournaments, and it's great to see some of these old faces that I used to compete against for years.
For sure, yeah.
But it really just depends. I want to make sure that they're doing it with the right expectation of why they should be competing.
Okay.
Because everybody trophies and they're like, man, I want that. Well, that's hard to win. It's really hard to win. And I don't want you to go with, I got to win that or it's going to be a bad day because you're going to get turned off from competing. You might even get turned off from training. And now I lost a good student because you had a bad experience because of your expectation with the tournaments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now that you see yourself now as more of the instructor and more of the guy that works in the office overseeing the day-to-day operations, where do you go from here? Like, what do you want to do at this point when it's all said and done? I mean, do you still want to keep training and rank up? Do you just want to focus on, passing the knowledge on to the next generation? Where do you want to go?
That's a great question. It's something I've asked myself a lot over the years, and it's changed based off of my family dynamic. So for years, I always had a dream of having my own studio in some capacity. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Bussard has talked about different ideas. There was at one point he talked about franchising. There's at one point he talked about just selling certain schools outright. And then COVID hit. And COVID, I mean, for as successful as Kicks Karate is, it damn near closed the entire organization. And that really scared me. And especially as someone who now I have a wife and 3 kids, I don't know that I'm willing to take that risk to especially start from scratch a school with my own money and, potentially go a long time before you start making money, because in the blink of an eye, it could be gone. And I never thought anything like that, anything would take Kicks Karate down like that. And so that really scared me, because it's not like, we were doing something wrong. It was an act of God happens. People get really freaked out, right or wrongfully so, but they did. And as did a lot of businesses. We had to close certain schools, but it almost shut Kicks Karate down. And I'm like, I don't know that I'm willing to do that. So I'm very happy with where I'm at. I really enjoy working with the people that I work with. And I don't necessarily know that there's a desire to own my own studio. I mean, I would love the opportunity to, let's say one day Mr. Bussard was like, hey, getting a little bit older now and I want to start taking a huge step back, or I want to sell a school. There would definitely be a serious conversation to have there, but it's not something that I'm like, I have to do this anymore. When I was younger, I would have said, yeah, absolutely. But priorities change. And so no, not 100%. I have to do that anymore.
Now, being a parent and knowing that you have kids, could we actually see them follow in the footsteps of dad being the martial artist as well?
I hope so. My daughter is 4, and we actually tried her this past summer in karate. She did a couple classes and was totally fine. And then she part of the problem for her is she's now grown up with kicks. And so it's still kind of a game to her. Mm-hmm. And so she's a little bit too much of a distraction for the class right now. And if it's going to be my daughter in class, there's obviously a different level of expectation that I can't sell discipline to this other family if my own daughter is not acting appropriately enough for that age group. So eventually I'd love to get her back. But yeah, I would absolutely love for all the kids to get in there. I kind of feel like my father though with that. I want them to do it, but I want them to want to do it. I don't want to push them into doing it, because I think if I push it too hard, at some point they're going to, not want to do it anymore. They're going to, and I don't want that. I mean, I definitely want them to do it. I definitely want them to try it, for them all to at least get their black belt. But it is something I certainly hope that they decide to do and stick with and have some sort of passion like I had. But I want them to be passionate about whatever they want to be passionate about. And if that's something I have no knowledge of, then that's totally fine. I appreciate anyone that's passionate about something.
Yeah, there you go. Well, this is the part of the interview where we do a real cool, fun activity. It's called the rapid fire. And
all right.
This is basically what's going to go down. I will ask you a bunch of questions. They could be silly. They could be serious. They could be true, false, multiple choice, fill in the blank or whatever. And, you just do the best.
Okay.
You just do the best you can with it.
All right.
All right. So, Mr. Anderson, are you ready for that rapid fire challenge?
I hope so. Let's do it.
All right. Well, without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, Lee Anderson, the reigning and defending grand champion of grand champions, versus the rapid fire challenge. God help us all. Okay. Here we go. Between the primary colors of yellow, blue, and red, my favorite primary color is
blue.
Okay. Do you consider yourself a jeans and t-shirt guy, or do you consider yourself I got to dress up in a suit guy?
Sweats, all day sweats.
Okay, sweats.
So jeans, t-shirt, whatever. Yeah, I'm not a big jerk. I can do it, but it's not something I enjoy doing a lot. That's for sure.
Favorite car?
Ooh, I've always had a desire to have an Audi.
Okay.
Probably like series Audis. It's not really necessarily like super exciting to a lot of people, but I don't know. I've always just kind of liked it.
I think if you dream it and you build it, it will come.
I think it's a reasonable car that I could own. I'm not going to sit here and say an Aston Martin or something like that, knowing that I would never spend that kind of money on a car.
No, hell no, no. Mm-mm. Not even if I was like very financially well off. I couldn't do that. I'd still keep it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, favorite food.
Ooh, that is a tough one. I love Chipotle. I got to be honest. I love Chipotle.
I'm not mad at you. I do like Chipotle myself.
Their chicken to me is unbeatable. I can never really get past their chicken.
Yeah, no doubt. PC or Apple?
PC, but Apple products for phones.
Okay. Favorite gaming console if you have one?
Oh, when I was a kid, I grew up. The first one was Super Nintendo, then I had an N64, then I had a PlayStation, and then I went a long time without it. Now my stepson has an Xbox. So I'd probably say the Xbox because the graphics on that thing are just unreal. And the other day, my father sent me a video from this old N64 game that he found on YouTube called Wave Race. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah.
Man, the graphics have come such a long ways. But Xbox is probably the best one right now.
Okay. If there was another martial art that you would love to train in, what would it be?
I would say probably jiu-jitsu. I love Hapkido. I've actually taken some Hapkido classes when I was in college, but I would love jiu-jitsu from the standpoint I want to be able to learn more how to fight on the ground or how to defend yourself on the ground. Mm-hmm. But Hapkido was so cool, learning the different pressure points and using the other person's momentum against them. Obviously, we do some Hapkido stuff at Kicks, but this was, solely based on Hapkido, and that was really cool. But Jiu-Jitsu would probably be the one I would want to learn the most, just because it's so different than what I've done.
Okay. Opinions on the UFC? Fan of it or not really?
I don't watch it a ton. I like it, but those guys, and it's the same thing with boxing. And I know part of it's an act, but they're just so arrogant. And I'm not saying that they're not extremely talented people I would necessarily never want to mess with, but I'm not a huge fan of watching it.
Okay. I get that. Name one tournament that you competed in that you felt like this is the beginning for me. Like this is, they will know who I am at this point.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this one. So, West Virginia's tournament, and I can't remember, I think it's S.H. Kong is the gentleman, is the Grandmaster's name. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is my friend Robert Zhang for years used to be part of the Young Brothers organization up in Pittsburgh.
That's right.
He competed at that tournament forever, won it I think it was 11 times in a row, something like that, something ridiculous. He's always wanted me to go. And I was like, so far, man. It's in February too. So, driving through West Virginia in the middle of February is not always easy. So one year, I think it was 2015, I decided to go. And I get up there, and now, I've been to tournaments now for a long time. So typically I know the majority of people at these tournaments, or the majority of the higher ranking people or the top competitors. I knew two people at this tournament, and they happened to be just people I had seen at Kim Studios tournament. And that was a couple students from R.T. Berry or Robert Summers, depending on, I don't know exactly which school they were from at that point. So I get there and I do forms, and I took third, which pissed me off so bad. I really, that was one of the few times that one actually got to me. I was like, oh man, this is some BS. But I was really upset, and my dad was like, just take it out in fighting. So we get into fighting, and because I didn't win forms, they didn't really know who I was at that point. So I go into the first match. I fight this guy from Young Brothers. We're sparring around. It's the first match. So he's still trying to get warmed up. He gets the first point in on me. I get a point back. Whatever it was a point, but it wasn't anything great. And then he threw a spinning jump round kick. And when I realized that he had spun to the point where it wasn't going to be a back kick or a horse kick, I stepped in and I lead hand punched him, keyed really loud, and he kind of got knocked back. And the kind of crowd there was like, whoa, okay, who is this guy? So I ended up beating him. I beat a couple other guys leading up to it. In the final match, we didn't have to wear gear at this tournament. And so I had headgear on because I just, you never know what can happen with that. But I hit him I hit the last guy in my division with a hook kick with the bottom of the foot. And just the smack that it made off of his helmet was like, the entire gym was like, oh my God, like what's going on here? So then we go to the finals. They had a weird rule there that if you had won the previous year, you had an automatic pass to the finals. Well, they made it so this guy who won it the previous year had to pass all the way to the final match. And me and three guys from Young Brothers, which is one of the best fighting organizations I've seen. I go through so then there's the three of us, and I always have terrible luck when it comes to the buys. So when they threw up the buys, I was like, I pulled up my piece of paper. I was like, I know it's going to have an F because that's just always how it is. Fight. Oh, the other guy gets the buy. So I beat him. There's no other match in between us. So they give me like 30 seconds. Got to fight the next match. Beat that guy. The same thing. 30 seconds going to the last match. And then I was able to beat the reigning champ from the year before. And as I was leaving, all these people were like, where are you from? Like, who are you? Like, so typically, I guess you would go out to dinner with the organization afterwards or whatever. Well, we were coming from Maryland, and they were calling for bad weather. So we actually went home. We got home like 2 a.m. And so I ended up talking to Robert Summers the following week, who I had met that day, even though I had met him years prior, but I was a kid.
Yeah.
And he was talking to me, and he goes, we were all like, man, this guy comes in, he just goes boom, 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 wins, takes the trophy. He's like, all right, I'm out. I'll see you guys later.
Oh, no.
So that was the one that sticks out for that.
Okay. What tournament have you competed in and won a grand championship in was the most meaningful one for you? Like, oh, wow. Like, I can't believe it.
New York, for sure. And both times I won it because of, well, the first time I won it because now my name's on that list with Chuck Norris, Mike Warren, Albert, Mark Williams, all these competitors. And that was in forms. And then the following year when I was able to win both the forms and the sparring. So I don't know which one of those meant more. I guess if I had to pick one, probably when I doubled up, but the first time you win it and your name's going to be on there with everybody else is a pretty awesome feeling too.
Favorite martial art company that you like their uniforms?
Ooh. I always got my stuff from Pro Force.
Mm. Okay.
We used to at Kicks. I have a different relationship with Sensory now because of the ordering end, and I've had some not awesome experiences with the ordering part of it, but their product is great. But Pro Force was what I always used.
I had a Pro Force one. It was a heavyweight one, like a heavyweight gi. And
yeah,
I swear to you, I'm not joking when I said in 4 months, that thing shredded up, because I was using it every day. Yeah, I was using it every day. I was wearing it. I was training with it. And after the 4th month, it ripped apart. And Mr. Johnson's like, Kim, are you losing weight or gaining weight? I'm like, sir, I don't know, but this doesn't feel right. And he takes his fingers and rubs on that uniform. He's like, you got yourself a $2 uniform. You need to invest in something good. I was like,
I did splurge a little bit with their heavy for sure. But yeah, I was also like, I wasn't a 4, I wasn't a 5, and they had a 4.5. And so it was perfect. Yeah. And I could never find anybody else.
That's the problem, I think, with certain martial art companies is that, they go strictly by the number, the whole number, but they don't put the half, like a 4.5 or a 5.5. And I feel like that's a little bit of a disadvantage, because somebody that's supposedly a 6, they wear a 7, but it's too baggy. You gotta create that 6.5.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my take on it. As you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers has a new coach. Your thoughts?
I'm a fan. I was actually I saw the post on it, and I kind of always thought they would go with McCarthy to begin with because he's from Pittsburgh. He's an established coach. And so when I first saw it, I was pretty excited. I was like, I really feel like the way the NFL is now, you really need a good offensive head coach now. Yeah. And I love Tomlin. I want you to understand, like, Tomlin was one of my favorite coaches. My dad actually used to coach his nephews when he coached at Bullis. And so we are limitedly connected to Tomlin, but I loved him. But I was excited, and then I saw all these posts about people not being excited about it, and I was like, I would rather do that than go with somebody who's an unknown. And I love Minter too, who the Ravens got. He was actually one of the ones I was hoping the Steelers would get. But with unknowns, you just don't know. He might be great. He might be like Ben Johnson was at the Bears, or he could be like some of these other guys that are coaching for half the season and then they're gone. So I'm excited. I'm curious to see more than their coaching, what they decide to do personnel wise and what direction they decide to go.
Okay. If you were to go ahead and try your making a field goal, what do you think that your longest kick would be? Do you think you can kick it from 70 yards?
No, I don't even know if I could get it. I don't even know if I could get it to go up. I mean, I really don't. The angle of that would be so different. Maybe 30 yards. I don't know. I really have never. I tried years ago to do a kickoff. I mean, I was 16, but and that thing was a squib just straight across, and I was like, I don't know. So I don't know. I really have never given that any thought, but I know I would really have to work on getting the arc.
I got you. Do you believe that offense gets the glory, but defense wins games?
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think that playing offense is much more of a prettier place to be, and much more finesse typically, and defense is more grit, and the flashiness gets the attention of the fans. And it's funny because you watch these games where it's like 38-34, and they're like, oh my gosh, that was one of the greatest games ever. But you see a game that's 14-10, and they're like, man, no one can get anything going, and blah blah blah, and they think it's a horrible game. And I'm like, it's the same margin of victory, and the defenses probably were playing much better. So I think there's a lot of truth to it. I think there's also a lot of truth to players win and coaches lose. And I think there's some validity to the statements, but I think it's absolutely a thought that people have for sure.
If somebody came to you and said, Lee, I'm thinking about taking martial arts, and I'm not thinking about just like strictly what you take, but just martial arts in general, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would tell them it's not so important what style you take as it is to find the school that fits you best. And because we've had people for years that, move to another part of the country and they want to continue to take it and they want to try to find the same style. And I'm like, you could go from one Taekwondo school to another Taekwondo school and it might be completely different curriculum. So don't even pay attention to that. Go to a school that you go in and first of all, they allow you to take some sort of a trial, whether it's an introductory class or maybe it's just whatever it is, and judge it based off of how you feel the vibe is for you and your family. And again, I deal mostly with parents for their kids. So it's more like how well does the instructor interact with your kids? And is it what you're looking for as a parent? Mm-hmm. Than more of the style.
Okay. Here's the one where we go a little bit out of the box here. You have been invited to go to a 3-star restaurant, and you go to the restaurant and you go to the table and you find that there's 3 extra spots that you need to fill as your guests. So the first part is, who would you invite? Now, they could be somebody that you know. They could be somebody that you don't know. They could be living, deceased, famous or non-famous. Who would be those 3 guests?
Okay. Mr. Kim Hoang Kim. Mm-hmm. Nick, totally random for that, but I love him and I love Alabama football.
Nick Saban?
Yeah. And my father. I think the 3 of us would have a great meal.
Now
that's not connected to each other at all, but
yeah. Now here's the second part. What do you think how that conversation would go? What do you think that the conversation would be, and do you think that it would end well?
I think there would be a lot of talks about philosophy. I never met Mr. Kim. He passed before I ever started training. But I think based off of what I've heard about him, I think that there would be a lot of talks about philosophy on because in some ways they're all teachers and they're all coaches. And I think there'd be a lot of talk about different ways to train, different ways to motivate, different aspects of training that would correspond with life afterwards too, not just in the sport that you're doing.
Right.
So I think, assuming we could get past the language barrier with Mr. Kim, it would be a fantastic conversation.
Favorite martial arts actor?
Ooh, Jet Li.
Ooh, all right. I like that.
I love Jackie Chan. Don't get me wrong, but Jet Li was always my favorite.
I understand that. I do. Besides John Bussard, who are your martial art mentors, or people right now that you consider your martial art mentors?
Sure. This other guy that was his right-hand man has been his right-hand man for years. His name is Mike Brown. He's another Kim Studio black belt, a little lesser known. He didn't compete as much, but he taught me how to, I will say, not be soft as a kid. Absolutely Ricky. And then some of these guys that I've met over the years, Robert Zhang, I still talk to about certain things. I still have a lot of respect for Eric DePrince. Another guy that Ricky used to have that trained with us that I didn't mention earlier was Albert Song, who also didn't compete a ton, but he used to come back and train with us when Ricky was with Kicks, and he was very eloquent speaker, just had really great philosophy, really good motivator. I don't talk to him as much anymore, but I know if I saw him, it'd be like we never miss a day.
There you go. If the Lee Anderson of today could go up against the Lee Anderson in his prime, who do you think is going to win that fight?
Probably the Lee Anderson in his prime.
Wow.
But the knowledge that I have now would be a lot different. So it really would depend on if I could get inside his technique, that's for sure. But probably the Lee Anderson in his prime.
Wow, I thought you were going to root for for the present Lee.
I'm self-aware, man.
Fair enough. A few more questions. Ninja Turtles or Power Rangers?
Power Rangers.
Oh man. DC or Marvel?
I'm not a fan of either one so much. Probably Marvel, I guess, but I was never really that into comics.
Okay. If you were ever to do a workout, whether if it was martial arts based or not, what would be the music that you would listen to that would get you in that battle mode?
Ooh, I love my my early 2000s hip hop and rap.
Okay. We're talking about like
Lil Jon, East Side Boys.
Okay.
DMX.
Ooh.
Those guys that are just kind of angry, that just make you ready to fight, man. Those were always the ones.
I hear you. If somebody actually said, Lee, we want you to compete one more time, would you consider it?
I would consider it, but I probably wouldn't do it.
Okay. I feel that.
My phone is on 2%, Kim. Let me just grab my charger real quick.
Sure. Oh my gosh, guys, we're getting good with this one. We're getting really good. This is unfair. But to be fair, though, on a side note, before Lee gets back, we only got maybe a few more questions, so we're not going to get much more of his time. Oh, Lee probably conked out. That's okay. Real quick, though, I would just say this, guys. Before, if Lee comes back, it is really important to know that when, especially you're a martial artist, and it can be applicable in anything, but whatever the goal is, it's not that hard to achieve. It takes a lot of time to make it work, but if you're really wanting to do that, then yeah, go for it. Go. That's the that's the situation right there. If you want to do this, go for it. If you want to do that, go for it. If you want to earn this, go for it. If you want to earn that, go for it. That's the bottom line. I know there are a lot of things in my life that, I wanted to work hard towards and achieve. And some of it I have come a little bit short, but that's okay. I'm still working on it. Other times I was able to get it, so it's awesome. It's really awesome. Wow. Oh, hey, there he is. And ladies and gentlemen, back from the depths of technology difficulty.
I had to switch phones real quick. I thought I was going to get it. I'm so sorry, man.
No worries. No worries. We only have about 2 more questions.
Okay,
really.
cool.
Then we're out of here. When it comes to, kicks karate, if there was something that you could say to every person in there, every instructor, everybody from the office and all your students, what would you say to them?
Oh man, I've never given that any thought at all. I guess it would be go Steelers. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I think the best lesson you can learn is don't give up when things get tough, man, because you learn a lot more about yourself when you're going through adversity than when things are easy. I always said you learn a lot more when you lose than you ever did when you win.
Amen.
So I really feel like today's society is a little too give up when it gets a little tough, and I wish that people were a little more resilient with that.
Okay. Actually, 2 more questions. Here's question number 1. Mental health, a serious thing, or that's just a bunch of lies?
No, 100% serious. 100%. I think that sometimes it gets people play it up sometimes to get what they desire, especially when it comes to work, and maybe being a little too sensitive about certain things, but I absolutely think it's a serious thing. It's something that I've struggled with over the years too. But it's definitely a serious thing.
For sure. Last question. When it's all said and done, and you're basically, walking and doing your swan song, what kind of legacy do you want to leave to the world when they say, Lee Anderson, this is his legacy? What do you want your legacy to say?
I wanted to say that not only was he a great competitor, that he was also a great person. Genuinely cared about his students, was a good father to his kids, good husband. That to me means more than anything else I've ever accomplished.
I think honestly, you just saying that, I think that that's just like a given that, what you're doing right now, that's already the legacy and it's already coming true. I hope I can keep it that way then. Yeah, no, I'm telling you, you're doing a hell of a good job with it. Like for real. That's,
thank you, man. I appreciate it.
That's facts. This is the part of the podcast where I'm going to put myself on mute. You can go ahead and do your own send off if you want to give a shout out to whoever you want to shout out with. If you want to promote your social media or promote any type of business, or you want to talk about what you got coming up in the world. Sure. I'm just going to go ahead and let you do that. And at this point, the floor is yours.
Thank you, man. Well, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. I've never really had a chance to sit down and tell my story over the years. So I really appreciate the time. And for you to consider me, I have to give a huge thank you to my instructors over the years, Master John Bussard, Master Mike Brown, Master Ricky Faisbach. I have to give a big thank you to Edwin. He, like I said, he was the first one that ever saw anything in me. God rest his soul. but he was the first one that really took the time to work with me. And I got to give a big thank you to my parents, because for years it was just us going to these tournaments. A lot of schools, they go with their entire organization, their instructor. I unfortunately was not able to do that a ton, and it was usually just me and them, and we'd be at that gym for hours not every Saturday, but enough Saturdays in the year. If anyone's interested in the Montgomery County area and joining a martial arts school, Kicks Karate is a great place to learn. Myself, as Kim said, I'm part of the North Potomac organization, but any of the schools are great. And I guess the last thing I have to say is go Steelers, man. That's all I got.
Wow. Lee, I mean, I've known you throughout the years, but I think that at this point, I don't think I wouldn't have known you as, much as I do now. And the fact that you took, your time to spend it with me and to be gracious enough with your time and tell us your story and, sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. I really appreciate that. It's like, black belts and martial artists like yourself, I look at them and I'm like, I want to try to be like that person. I definitely want to see, if I can become, as good of a person as he or she is, not for the sense of like, the accomplishments of what they did in the tournament circuit, but just in general. So I want to thank you personally for just, not only spending your time with me, but just to, not only be like a cool friend, but also like a mentor. And I want to thank you so much for that.
My pleasure, Kim. And it means a lot coming from you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt. And ladies and gentlemen, that's where we're going to end it. For the past few times that, minutes and hours that we did this was cool. But, we got things that we got to do. The day is young. We got to keep it going. So let me go ahead and do the closing notes, guys. You can find me on Facebook. Go under the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience. Follow it, and I'll be there. Social media wise, we are on Twitter, now known as X, and on Instagram. Follow me under the tag name at TKHPC Experience, all in one word, lowercase letters. Follow me and I'll follow you back. We are on a lot of podcasting platforms, up to Yin Yang, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, YouTube Music. We are on Audible and on iHeartRadio. Please like and subscribe to my podcast and all those aforementioned podcasts. Or I should say podcasting platforms. Do me a favor. If you have Spotify, please give me a 5-star ranking. We definitely would appreciate that. If you have Apple Podcast, and you should for all you iPhone owners, you know what I mean, because it's free. Give me a 5-star ranking and a positive written review, because the more times that we get that for Spotify and for Apple Podcast, our podcast will be thrown over to the front lines and people will notice it. And somebody might be like, oh, the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience. I remember hearing about this because my boy James told me that this is the podcast to listen to. We should like, follow, and subscribe to it. Yes, please. I would appreciate that. You know what I mean? Last but not least, if you want to be a special guest, if you want to be a special guest host, if you have any constructive criticism, or if I do a solo show and you want a question to be involved in my Q&A form, please email me at the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience at gmail.com. Whatever the subject is, put it there. Body of the email, fill it out, email it. I'll read it within a day or two because I like communication. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Please be safe out there, guys. We don't like you to do dangerous things, and, it doesn't do us any good if you get buried in a pine box and get shoved in 6 feet under. We don't want that. We want you to be healthy. We want you to be happy. We want you to strive for, the perfection that you want to achieve and a whole lot more, because you deserve it. and you should get it. And if anybody tells you that you don't deserve it, just take 2 steps back and just hit them with, like, that yup chuggy to the face. Boom, just knock them out real quick. They'll get the point. So special thanks to, once again, a good friend, a good brother, great martial artist, and somebody who I consider as a mentor, and Master Lee Anderson. He is a man among men. God bless him. And shout out to his family, his dad and his mom. I remember them. Beautiful people. They're great people. I can't say any more nice things other than the fact that, they should be getting the Parent of the Century award, all right? Parents of the Century. So if there's something out there like Parents of the Century Award Committee, give them the trophy, like right now. So for the one time, this is your boy Kim Hoang, coming all the way out from an undisclosed location. I am the host with the most, the man with the plan, the guy that can bring the power within the hour, and the dude with the right attitude, your Asian sensation, saying thank you, arigato. We will do it again. God bless y'all. Keep it real, and we will check you out on the next one. All right? Be safe, guys, and I will see you soon. Peace.